Welcome to the Nordic Championship and the finals day for the League of Legends tournaments for the spring season. We are here in Monster Energy DreamHack Studios and we are preparing for an epic best of 5 for the finals of League of Legends as stated for the spring season. I am Dreamish and together here with me in the studio I have two very hyped casters, Henning and Sang. Are you feeling the energy?
Absolutely. I would definitely say that I am feeling the energy right now. What about you, Henning?
We're feeling very energetic here as we're just about to kick it off. We've been going for several weeks and just leading up to this moment, so can't wait to get started.
It's going to be amazing. And we're going to talk a little bit about the teams. We have two very strong teams here, and we're going to talk about whether or not they have really actually met any serious competition throughout the tournament, because I know they've been looking strong up till here. But let's talk a little bit about Nordic Championships. Put this in place. What is the Nordic Championship? Where are you going from here?
I think the big thing is the EU Masters, which we're looking for as the next stepping stone. Both of these teams will be qualifying for this big tournament where the best leagues in Europe, except for the LEC, of course, will be clashing up for a lot of fame and really a stepping stone for your future esports career. So if you're able to make a good showing here in the finals and eventually in the EU Masters, that's just going to be a great starting point if you want to be building a career as a League of Legends player.
Yeah, and I know you've had players really picked up from earlier versions of the tournament, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have Finn, that just now was playing in the LEC. Not playing anymore, sadly, but he was definitely picked up. He did very well in the EU Masters, in the Nordic Championship, and he was scouted on top of that performance.
I've been very impressed by players, previous players, and also the current players here. Talk a little bit about the level of play we can see in this tournament. It's really nice, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been a more even season than ever. A lot of the times in the Nordic Championship, we've had one or two top teams just beating everyone else. But now even the top teams have been losing to some of the other teams, and it's been really even across the entire season. Everyone's been like taking and losing games of everyone, basically. So definitely good to see the level of play being so like neck and neck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, for example, Ventus Esports, they lost against Östersunds FK, which was the only team they lost against. But Östersunds FK also were able to beat Nyyrikki White and other teams. So Nyyrikki White also almost ending up in a four-way tie, but finally cementing that top 2 position. So been really back and forth.
With that, let's talk a little bit about those semifinals. Let's take a look at the bracket and see where these teams come from up till this final day. We have, as you stated, Ventus Esports, who played against Östersunds FK, and then the Nyyrikki White who beat out the final tribe. And I think both of those were they 2-0 matches, both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty one-sided, a lot of those games. Östersund was actually very close to taking game of Ventus. They really had a great game one where they had, I think, a 7-0 Yasuo for Adept. But in the end, Ventus were just too strong of a team.
Yeah, I think especially Östersunds FK, on top of being the only team in the tournament to take 2-0 versus Ventus Esports earlier in the group stage and then coming back to meet them in the semifinals. Ventus Esports did have to struggle, as you mentioned. They were falling behind in one of those games at least, but in the end, they looked almost unstoppable on top of that team performance. The final tribe and Nyyrikki White also had to face each other a lot during this tournament, as it was almost a four-way tie for these for 4 of the teams in the top 5 of the final day in the group stage. So many things happen. I believe that Nyyrikki White really have proven that they have deserved this spot.
Yeah. So real quick before we welcome the teams here, we have a Danish and a Finnish team. What happened to the Swedes? I know that they were, right, in the first finals of Nordic Championship, there were 2 Swedish teams. And in the second finals, there was 1 Swedish team. We've come full circle, right?
Yeah, following the trend here, I called it earlier. I mean, as you said, 2 teams in the first finals, and now it's 0 of them. I think both Östersund and the final tribe had a decent shot of taking it here, but in the end, I think both of those teams had some clear weaknesses. I think if you just merge those players together into one team, take the strong players from each team, I think you have a team that could win the entire tournament, but as it stood, just not strong enough.
Yeah. So we inevitably we're going to want to talk about these 2 teams in specific and talk about their details. So I think that what we should do is we should welcome them in here. So we're going to start off by welcoming Ventus Esports into the studio.
There they go, sleeping in the top lane, leading the team, Sang.
Yeah, absolutely. Followed by the rest of the team with Canapil in the jungle, Jameru. Oh, sorry, it's not
no,
that's the other team that made Priestkuddet in the mid lane. Krislen is the marksman, and Quitset as the support.
I think we should just really quickly mention that Krislen has been more well known under the nickname Pinoy, which is used earlier. So just to clarify, that is the same person.
Yeah, absolutely something that I mistakenly said something about for the first week. Didn't actually know about that, but now I do, and these players look ready to rumble and get going with this. They are coming in as the favorite team in this best of 5.
And what players are we really looking out for here? Because I know that there are several very strong players within both of the teams, but for the Danish team, who are we really looking for?
I would look for the bottom lane. I think that Chrislund and Quickset is the big strong point. I think that's the that's the biggest advantage on the map by far. I also think you can look for the top lane for Sleeping. He's been a bit inconsistent so far. He has had some really good performances and some really questionable ones. So I think you can really, I mean, if you're a Ventus fan, you really pray that the right Sleeping shows up today.
Yeah. So what are we looking for from the team? Do we need consistency? Because, as you said, Sleeping, for example, have had some really good games, some kind of bad games. But I know that as a team, they've really lifted each other, and they've been working pretty well as a machine.
Absolutely. I believe that this is a team that stands on top of each other's shoulders starting off. I would argue, honestly, that this bot lane definitely is strong, but it's kind of standing on the shoulder of players like Priest Kunat, for example, because even in games where Sleeping has been playing inconsistently, we have seen Priest Kunat just being a very consistent mid laner, with that mid lane presence really opening up for Musht in the jungle, and that allows sort of Sleeping to get back into a game, even on top of making individual mistakes. And that is what allows this bot lane also to thrive and really just sit down, being able to win that 2 versus 2 just ever so slightly in the farm. And then when it comes to the global presence and getting the objectives, that's where they're really shining.
Yeah, I think they have so much experience. So when it comes to setting up like around Baron or setting up the sieges, identifying your win conditions as a team, they just have so much experience, so much game knowledge on the team, and they've also got a very experienced coach with the roster now as well, who joined them late during the group stages as well. So I definitely think that that's a strong point for Ventus.
Yeah, so a very strong Danish team here representing, really. And let's see if that is enough, if they can face the Finnish Thunder. We should welcome our second team into the studio. Welcome Nyyrikki White.
It's really nice pronunciation there, Peter.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Really like that
I like my thunder there, my height, and then the silence after the Finnish Nyyrikki White. That was the same in the Danish one.
Heavy silence.
Heavy silence.
You can see this team coming up right now with Canopy in jungle, Jamero in the middle, and Acitor as the marksman. And I believe that Tiara will be starting today.
Yeah, Tiara on the support position right there. Of course, the big player that we've been talking about a lot during the group stages and the semifinals has been Yamaru. He's been so hyped up there. You can see him on the camera as well. He's receiving so much hype in the Finnish scene, called the Finnish Faker. I mean, this is just the guy that you look out for today.
Absolutely. Jamero, though, has said himself that from time to time during his career, he has been choking a little bit when it just comes to these final stages. But for this tournament here, the Nordic Championship, I feel like he's really been stepping up and getting past those nerves, and together with his team, been able to prove why he is called the Finnish Faker.
Yeah, so far he's been performing really well in that solo lane, and I also got to mention Stenbosse up top. I think he's been having some very solid performances. Honestly, they did not have the highest expectations for him, since he's not been playing the game all that much recently, but he's been looking extremely solid, even winning out in the 1 versus 1 matches where you're not really supposed to be winning. So just got to say both solo laners look very solid for Nyyrikki.
I've had good stuff about Acitor as well on the bottom lane, and they said that they have 2 strong players in Yamaru in the mid and Acitor on the bot. So apparently it seems like they have an all-in-all very strong team. I know they're very happy with that, and I know you talked to them earlier. What did they say about the team composition?
Yeah, absolutely. Acitor is one of the new players on the team, and they found that playing with him really just gave them everything that they wanted, with new champions for the champion pool and the kind of synergy they were looking for, which is a part to why they're looking so strong, getting all the way up to this final and looking almost unstoppable in the semi-final as well.
And they've been really consequent in building their team efforts. They're very good at like taking objectives, being on the right locations at the same time. What is it going to take from Ventus Esports to really stop this machine? What does it look like in this matchup? Which team has an edge?
I just think that Ventus has the stronger mechanical individual players. So yes, while I agree Nyyrikki have been looking very smart, they've been knowing what to do with their team, how to set up around these objectives. But I think just looking at the individual lineups, you have the stronger mechanical players on Ventus. So I think what you're looking for there is just extended laning phases, skill matchups across the board, where you can really show that individual skills and knowledge of the champions and be able to outplay that way.
So what do you think? What are you expecting from these both teams?
Well, I would say that I expect Nyyrikki White to really try to play to their strengths, having that consistency and playing around their bot lane, like I've been talking about. But for Ventus, on the other side, I totally agree that I believe individually they are slightly stronger just mechanically, but they're also quite a lot more inconsistent. We have seen these individual mistakes where Sleeping, Priskun, Krislund all get caught out solo, over pushing lanes, and these are mistakes that they have been able to get away with in previous games.
Yep.
For this game versus Nyyrikki White, I believe that Nyyrikki, if they can find that kind of situation, even get like a little bit of shutdown goal maybe on top of some of those mistakes from Ventus, they can be able to snowball that game and completely take it under their control. So it's a lot up to Ventus right now to not make any of those mistakes, and it should be Ventus games. If Ventus make any of these mistakes individually, I believe Nyyrikki is going to run away with it.
So does individual skill versus the team machine, does that mean that Ventus wants to kind of grab a hold of the early game?
Not necessarily. I think they've been looking very strong when they go for these sort of late game hyper carries for the likes of Krislund on something like an Ezreal, a Sivir, even the Jinx, which he's been playing, or Chris Cornet, who's been just looking very solid on the Corki. I think if you just pick up these sort of late game, almost hyper carries, I think it can be off to a good start. But here we're speaking of starting, we're into the pick and ban, Sang.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see the first bans. It's the Cartus and the Zoe for Ventus Esports, and Nyyrikki White with the Lee Sin and the Shen. Finally, the last ban for Ventus Esports is going to be the Nico.
That is very interesting, because the first thing we should mention here is that we're on patch 9.3. LCS this week has been on 9.4. So this is the patch before the players knows this patch really well, and we'll see what the big picks are going to be. Nico, as you say, the ban that really stands out so far. Looking for junglers right now, I think both Jarvan and Sejuani are the big ones that are still open.
Absolutely. The standard pick here, first pick for most of the teams in this tournament, has been going for this Thresh when Jace has been banned, as Nyyrikki White had him as the last ban. And for these junglers, definitely would like to see the Sejuani being played a lot today.
Yeah, Urgot Priority is going to be the name of the game for Stenbosse, though. Another pick that I really need to mention is the Lucian, which has been left open so far. And I think if Nyyrikki does not pick up the Lucian here, they know that they're giving Krislund and Quickset a very strong lane. They're going to give them Lucian Thresh. There's kill potential. There's so much early game pressure in that duo lane. So either you take Lucian here, or you just concede the bottom lane to Ventus.
Absolutely. Nyyrikki White here, I know that they have a lot of confidence in their bot lane, but I agree with you that this could potentially be one of the absolutely strongest bot lanes you can face if Ventus Esports, which they should, decides to go for the Lucian pick right now together with the Thresh. Of course, we have Ezreal in the hands of Acitur, who has been consistent, who definitely has a lot of survivability, but here comes a little bit of a curveball. It's the Kai'Sa priority for Ventus Esports and the Zilean for the mid lane.
This is interesting. Not what I was expecting at all. The early pick Zilean, when it's not even a flex pick here, since they've already picked up the Thresh support. Talked a bit to Matko, the coach here for Ventus, earlier on, and he really mentioned the fact that they have some curveballs. They have some spicy picks prepared, and I think going Zilean mid now for Priscorn is not what I was going to be expecting at all, and it's going to mean that Yamaru in the mid lane will have a pretty hard time with the playmaking, so he's instead going to go for the scaling option with the Vladimir.
Absolutely, and Jamera has been playing a lot of these scaling majors for the mid lane. We have seen also Zilean being a very strong champion in this tournament in the hands of players like Denzel, but Priskonet usually has played a lot of Corki, that kind of aggressive playmaking champion. With Zilean, he's going to be the one instead focusing a lot more on keeping his team safe and landing a couple of time bombs in the team fights. But I do like to see the Zilean versus the Urgot, though.
And that is a bit interesting. They are, looks like Nyyrikki are really targeting the top lane here, not wanting Sleeping to get a beneficial lane matchup into Stenbosse. And this is a top lane matchup that we thought a lot about, because Stenbosse has just been looking solid on a lot of these tanks. Urgot sort of the off tank right here. What's Sleeping going to be playing into that? There is still the options to go for something like a Poppy, just to go even up in the top lane. Or he can really go for an aggressive, more carry-oriented pick. With Riven getting banned out, something like a Fiora stands out, or even the Sylas, which now has 3 pretty dang good ultimates to steal from Nyyrikki White.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sylas' champion, though, has been a little bit tricky in this tournament for the players to use to its fullest potential. Instead, we see the Nocturne ban now for Nyyrikki White and Ventus Esports with the final ban here. And they decide to go with the jungle bans, or to continue, or to go with something like a support ban here if they're a little bit worried about the matchup for the bot lane.
Yeah, could choose to target Tiara here, who has some good matchups that he can pick into the Thresh, maybe something like the Braum still being open. This gives you a very safe lane. Tom Kench even more a defensive, safe pick here in the support role. So I would expect one of those two supports to come out here and then look for Kenapil to get a beneficial jungle matchup.
Absolutely, and Kenapil now going for the Sejuani. This is something I definitely like to see at Kenapil. Although being a quite aggressive jungler who usually go for these early junglers, this is why we see the Olaf and the Xin Zhao banned. I do prefer actually to see him a little bit on a tankier jungler and to be that safe initiator for his team, as we have seen him try champions like Lee Sin, we've seen him try champions like Xin Zhao and Olaf earlier, and when he tries to go for these big plays, he's quite often kind of left alone in that situation.
Ooh, that
Here's
is
another jungler that we haven't seen that much of, but a little bit in this tournament. It's the Nidalee for Ventus Esports, and finally now looking for the top lane pick.
Yeah, but that Nidalee is definitely not what I was expecting for Ventus. I was expecting it to pick like something like a big tank and initiator, who they can just put the Cillian speed off on. You're going in a completely different direction. Now with this Nidalee, gonna be all about the early game pressure. They have a strong early game bottom lane with a lot of pressure. You're gonna be having an even top lane and then a pushing mid lane, since Vladimir's pushing early is so weak. So they're really adapting really well right now with the Nidalee pick, saying we're gonna be having the pushing in the mid lane and look for Priscornet on the Cillian and made on Marsh on this Nidalee to put down so much pressure early on into the Sejuani.
Absolutely. I do like to see Mush on this Nidalee, but I'm really interested to see how he will be able to perform on this. As we talked about earlier, Ventus Esports kind of sometimes go a little bit too deep and do not quite get away with it. Nidalee is the kind of champion that allows for these individual mistakes to happen, as she is so squishy. If she is caught for a second, then that can spell disaster for the team. You absolutely cannot fall behind with this. On the other side, we see a very strong team fighting composition with the initiate from Sejuani. We have the follow-up with the True Shot Barrage and the ultimate from the Urgot and the heroic entry with the Galio. So there are so many things here that synergize well together for the team fights.
I love the team fight composition for Nyyrikki. I think this is quite simple to execute, yet so much powerful. A good mix of CC and damage as well when it comes to these team fights. So much AoE, very strong ultimates. But what I'm a bit worried about is that the only form of primary engage that they've got is this Sejuani. Going to be going for a Q flash ulti maybe to start up a fight. And I'm a little worried that so much is going to be on the back of Kenapil here, because he's not been the strong point for Nyyrikki in my opinion. He's not really been the one shining. And with all of these late game team fights up to him on the Sejuani to start them up, I'm a bit worried for them.
I mean, mentally that's going to put a lot of stress on him. But on the other hand, as he has not been the most focused player of his team, that can also allow him to sit back just a little bit and know that the enemy team might not focus him as much, but instead is going to focus much more on Stenbooster, for example, on Jameru, who are the hype players, and even Azitor also, but of course on the Esper it's going to be quite difficult to catch him. But my worry around here is that Nyyrikki White, even though they have a good initiating team composition, they cannot just allow themselves to catch one player with this team composition and use everything on that. They're very good at initiating together, but if, for example, they catch sleeping, let's say, in a fight, and they all go for him, they burst him, and then you're going to have Priscornet there on his Cillian to neglect with one R click all of these big, costly ultimates, and then they can turn the fight around. That is something that I worry about a little bit, looking at Nyyrikki White's previous games, as this is something that they do. They catch someone, they use all of the resources on that champion, and that is something that can come back and bite you.
Absolutely. So very interesting to see here. Is it so that we are looking at Nyyrikki trying to really play in with these picks, really play into the teamwork we talked about, and it seems like Ventus is really playing into the individual skill with their picks? Is that it?
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta agree with you there. I think Nyyrikki has a very strong team fight, very strong engage, and then when it comes to Ventus, they really want to snowball this early with some strong individual players, especially made or merged on this Nidalee early on, and going to be putting on so much pressure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm going to leave this to you guys, but first of all, during the start of the game, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about this jungle matchup. What does that mean? Is that Sejuani versus a Nidalee?
The big thing here is just how much pressure you have early on when it comes to the duels. Of course, everyone and their mother knows that Nidalee are going to be out dueling Sejuani early. There is no way Kenapil in a straight-up 1 versus 1 are going to be going toe-to-toe with Mushed. But you really got to be looking to the laners as well. How well will your laners be able to support the invades here? And I think with Yamaru going for the Vladimir, I think that's like the big key for them to go for the Nidalee, because Vladimir so weak at pushing early on. Yamaru's not going to be able to keep up with the pushing of Prisk Hornet, so Mosh is going to be having the mid lane priority for most of the game, and that is going to give him a lot of freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a lot of things going in the way for Ventus Esports for the early game right now, as you say, having that mid lane pressure. Let's see, Mosh gonna take this Rift Scuttler, and then I expect him to go for the invade. Although Kenapil is a kind of smart player that actually knows how to play around this. He has spotted this right now. He's seen Mosh, and he knows what Mosh can be going for next. Mosh actually not going to go for invade immediately, instead gonna go for his second buff.
Maybe he's looking for double crab here. He might be, yeah, he's going to be making his way over to secure both of those crabs, and denying that from Sejuani is going to be really strong, because Sejuani is a champion who takes crab really well, gets those autos down with the E and then procs the stun. Well, now that's not going to be an option for Kenapil anymore, with Mosh securing that as well. You can also see the bottom lane priority here for Crystalline and Quickseth. And I gotta say, I love this Kai'Sa Thresh lane, because like it just does everything. Like, it has engaged. You can choose to play around this bottom lane and really try to make the snowball happen, or you can choose to completely ignore it and just leave Kai'Sa scaling, gonna scale almost as well as the Ezreal, and you have a lot of safety with the Lantern from Quickseth as well. So I just think Crystal and Quickseth are looking so strong on this duo lane. I like these
Absolutely.
picks.
We also right now see all these little things that Ventus Esports are doing, going in and denying that explosive plant. They're going with Quickseth to help secure the Rift Scuttler. All of this just trying to get Kenapil into a bad position, and Kenapil is forced to flash away from these spear as Made arrives from the darkness to steal away this blue buff as well. And getting this blue buff at this timing will allow him to have infinite mana for such a long time.
Yeah, that is a really big point there. Getting blue buff on Nidalee is going to be so important in stealing away this camp as well. We talked about this mismatch jungle matchup where Mosh is going to be the one with early pressure, but I did not expect him to be able to force the flash of Kenapil. You gotta say that's also somewhat of a mistake on the Sejuani.
Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, Kenapil is struggling right now to find anywhere he can go at this point. This is the kind of things that you have to sacrifice going with the Sejuani pick.
Yeah, look in his jungle and at his lanes. There is nothing Kenapil can do right now. This is so well done for Mosh. Being able to steal away all the camps in the enemy jungle and then having the lanes pushed up as well for him. He can't really go for the gank. He's going to go for an aggressive invade here, and with Mosh going to the other side of the jungle, Kenapil is going to be somewhat fine right here, but he's definitely still behind on this Sejuani matchup.
Yeah, Kenapil is behind, but he's reading this jungle well. A lot of players would not dare to venture into this jungle, but knowing Mosh, his pathing, he realizes that this is something that he can get away with, also with his team helping him with good ward coverage around.
Yeah, you can see Stenboss actually roamed in together with Kenapil into the enemy jungle, so he really was helping out his jungler right there. And I gotta say that Ventus, they really need to make a lot of things happen with this Nidalee pick. It's not just something that you're randomly picking up and looking to scale with and get the attack speed steroid on the Kai'Sa later. No, you're really looking for Mosh to be able to make things happen, and while there's a good start, he needs to keep the pressure on. He can't just let Kenapil keep farming up, and you can see exactly that happening. Mosh and Quickseth are now roaming together. This ward is going to be saving Nyyrikki a lot of time, though.
Yeah, very good ward coverage from Nyyrikki, expecting this to happen, or I'm not sure if they expected the Nidalee, but absolutely having a plan how to play around this aggressive early jungler from Mosh. So I do like to see this. What I'm looking for right now is to see what happens when Kenapil gets his flash up again when he has level 6 and gets his ultimate unlocked. As he was able to steal those 2 camps from the top side of the map, he's actually not that far behind.
And not that far behind here on the Sejuani. Still think that you really want level 6 before you're trying to put down any sort of big pressure. Gotta say thing is though that there's not really that much pressure to put on these lanes, and you can see the lane priority which I mentioned here. Prisk Hornet really having so much priority on Yamaru, who has such a hard time pushing early on this Vladimir, and if you are Ventus, you're so happy to see that this is an Infernal Dragon.
Absolutely, this is what I love to see from Ventus Esports, and you're really using this Nidalee now, securing the Infernal Dragon, having a little bit of luck getting that. The only thing that could be better than this, I believe, would maybe be the Mountain Dragon for them, but absolutely should be very happy with securing that Infernal Dragon for the late game.
For sure got to be happy. Oh, bottom lane fight though.
Big fight in the bot lane. Ignite is ticking, and first blood goes to Quickset and Ventus Esports.
That's got to be a hook, just straight up landing on Tiara. Did not use any summoners. Pretty sure he could just flash away from that. Not sure if that's nerves or what was going on, but Crystal and Quickset are off to a good start as well. Mosh is off to a good start. The bottom lane is doing well as well. So really got to say that Ventus, I mean, they're looking solid.
Looking at Nyyrikki here, one thing they have been struggling with a little bit has been just like the game knowledge of knowing exactly how much to put into fights or how much you can survive. These are small individual mechanical mistakes that they tend to make. For example, Tiara here not realizing that being caught in this situation would mean a definite kill for Quickset, holding on to his Ignite, holding on to the flash, and not really, or rather holding on to the flash really in this situation.
Yeah, and look on the minimum of Quickset with that kill. You might be sad seeing the kill goal going over to support, but that means he's been able to pick up the boots of mobility. He's now active on the top side of the map, and this has been the only strong point for Nyyrikki so far, Stimbo. So with a 10 CS lead over Sleeping, which is not something that you're really expecting, especially when Sleeping's getting the counter pick, but this is just Mosh and Quickset saying, okay, you're doing kind of well on the top side, no you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in the mid lane, Quickset has arrived, not going to find anything with Death
Wow.
Sentence, but Mosh, I mean, finds the kill on Kenapil as he did not have his flash up just yet.
And Mosh, you gotta give it to this jungler. Oh, dive bottom lane though.
The dive bot lane. True Shot Barrage not going to find anything as Christian is able to dodge it. Tiara tanking the turret forever and dying just to the turret damage. AC Turret trying to survive this, but now tanking 2 shots. He is slow, and the double kill for Krislund, almost getting that one solo. I'm not even sure if Quickset was needed in that last part.
Wow, that is such a big thing for Ventus. They've been snowballing this game so well. We're not even 9 minutes in, and already they've got such a big lead. You can also hear the cheers coming out from Pinoy, just sitting a couple of meters away from us right there. He was really happy with what happened there. And with Pinoy, I mean Kristen, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something that is going to put a little dent in the morale for Nyyrikki White right now. They sacrificed so much to try to go for that tower dive bot. You can see the flash and the ignite on cooldown for Tiara, but weren't able to get anything. Instead, just snowballing Krislund ahead. Going for the double pickaxe build towards the Infinite Edge as well is not going to give him the earliest power spike, but once he gets these items with all the synergy, it's going to be so difficult to stop him.
Yeah, for sure, and you gotta look at the entire team of Ventus right now. Mosh here on this Nidalee. He's the one I was a bit worried about. He's not been playing at these sort of big LAN tournaments or like finals, offline finals like this. So I was a bit worried about him. Maybe thought that Ventus was just gonna be putting him on like a tanky supportive jungler, maybe look for like a Sejuani or Jarvan pick for him. But instead they just gave him all the responsibility in the world. He's gonna be the big carry for the team, and he's been making it happen so far.
Absolutely. Kenapil, though, handling this pressure well, I would say, being able to go in and counter jungle himself, kind of reading Mosh and being able to stay just slightly ahead of him to not fall behind too much. I think this proves that he is definitely the more experienced jungler, but Mosh has been able to do more on the map.
Yeah, he's been able to make more things happen.
Oh, big mistake from AC to not Arcane shifting away from the hook. Again, these kind of small mistakes that cost them so much versus Krislund and Quickset.
That is not supposed to happen. Okay, Krislund now 3-0 with a 10 CS lead. They're going to be getting a couple of tower platings right now. Like, this is not supposed to be what's going on. Every hook lands from Quickset.
Hook on Tiara and Krislund. He has his ultimate, not going to use it. Instead, just focusing down the turret.
Why go for the kill when you can get tower plates? That's going to give you pretty much as much gold as a kill.
Yeah, absolutely. So this bot lane is now spiraling out of control. And this allows Mosh again to go in for the invades. Actually, he's going to lose the Grump as Acer were able to get a little sneaky Mystic shot in. But yeah, this is a big problem right now. We talked about this earlier, Ventus Esports having this strong bot lane, really showing their true colors, but also something happens here that worries me a lot. Instead of Ventus Esports making these individual mistakes, it's right now Nyyrikki White making individual mistakes in their bot lane over and over again, allowing so much gold to go into the hands of Krislund and Quickset.
Yeah, and we talked about the matchup here. I talked about the Lucian potential in the early game draft. If they would have gone Lucian, I mean, you're doing so well with Kai'Sa Thresh. Whoa!
Oh! That's the steal! Marsh, I'm not sure if he's happy with this, but he definitely was able to steal. He was also, I think since he was able to flash away, he managed to pick up the Rift Herald Eye as well. So that's very important for him, not only stealing it, but also being able to get away with that. Sacrificing his life in that situation is something that he will be happy with.
Gotta say that's a good trade for Mosh. Still gotta say for Nyyrikki, I'm happy to see that they're doing something. You can see them there that they are realizing that they have a top lane lead. Stemos still with about a 10 CS lead, doing really well on this Urgot. So roaming up towards top lane with Tiara on this Urgot and trying to make something happen. Speaking of Tiara though. Yeah,
Tiara's been caught. Teleport coming in, not even going to be needed. The Priest Cornet arriving and making sure that he gets the kill as well.
Oh, the time bomb swag. Cool guys don't even look at explosions, and Priest Cornet starts running back towards the mid lane before the kill even went down. Tiara really not having the greatest of games on this Galio so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiara is not happy on his Galio, has been caught out 2 times, and with that botched tower dive as well. He's down 0-3 right now. And Nyyrikki White, they really need to step up right now and realize what is happening. But for Ventus Esports, they will be happy just settling down in the mid lane right now with the Rift Herald, getting some more turret plates off this, and securing even a bigger gold lead for themselves.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Observer, can you please take a look at the goal lead for Crystalline? Because he got the bottom lane tower before the plates went off, and that's another kill.
Crystalline is on a rampage, finds another kill on Asator. Asator again with the flash up is caught out of position, and Crystalline with that damage, just look at it. He's a monster right now.
He's insane on this Kai'Sa. He's been getting 5 tower plates as well as the tower in the bottom lane. 4-0-2 is the kill score 13 minutes in, and those are the 2 best dragons that you can wish for. If you want to play early game focused team playing around the dragons, Infernal into Mountain is pretty much the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah,
maybe the other way around, Mountain into Infernal would be better, but hey. They're still happy.
You know, you can't get everything. You can't always get what you want, but I think this is what they needed. Ventus Esports now with a huge lead. They're up 5k gold, almost 5.5k gold after 14 minutes. They have gotten so many turrets plates off. The only turret that looks somewhat intact is up in the top lane for Nyyrikki White. For the rest of the map, it's wide open for Ventus Esports, and now they can put in the second gear.
Yeah, you can see exactly that they're realizing the same thing as you are. Kristen and Quix is now heading towards the top lane. Asator is going to try to respond here on the Ezreal, but he's not going to be able to do too much at all. Sure, he has that Glacial Shroud just to not get bursted down by all the AD that Kristen has been stacking up, but that's a 2-item Kai'Sa. That's a pretty big power spike, and with his build, he's going to be getting the Q evolve as well with all of this AD. Canapil is waiting around though. Can they look for this? They have to try to burst down Crystalline.
Yeah, good block there from Quickset. It's going to allow Crystalline to get away. He's going to follow up with the hook, and Tiara going golden will keep him alive for a couple of more seconds before he goes down. Crystalline yet again. Canapil not having his ult, but already using it. Now has to run away. Priest Cornet has arrived. Going in. Double kill for Crystalline, and even more of a lead to Ventus Esports.
Wow.
Oh, here comes the secondary fight. They're going for it. Crystalline has been caught, but he is kept alive with the Zillion ultimate. Is going to be able to get away as well. Look at how much HP he gets back. Simbosa has been caught a little bit there. Good flash. Simbosa's come in, but here goes the ultimate from Crystalline. He's still in this fight. He's godlike with the extended quadra kill in the fight.
And we talked about who to watch on Ventus. I think I said the name Crystalline, and I think I was pretty much on point right there. Look at this guy on Kai'Sa. What are you gonna be able to do against him? Every hook landing on Quickset, but he's just setting up Crystalline for success here.
Absolutely, and this is on top of these little mistakes in the bot lane that really has allowed Crystalline and Quickset, or rather, I can't even call them little mistakes anymore. These are actually kind of big mistakes. You cannot allow yourself to be caught with a Thresh hook when you have your Arcane Shift up, or rather, if you don't have your Essence Shift, Arcane Shift up, you can't allow yourself to be in a position where you can get caught, especially when you have Flash up as well. But Quickset also really stepping up. Gotta give it to this man right here for making Crystalline look so good with 7 kills right now and 1,000 shutdown gold on him.
And think a bit more about what this does for this series. I talked about predictions here. I thought that it was either going to be clean 3-0 for Ventus, or it's going to be 3-2 either way. Because I think Ventus are going in with a lot of confidence. So if they start to lose a game, start to fall behind, they're going to be really start to doubt themselves, maybe start to tilt a little bit. but so far they've just been dominating. They've been running over Nyyrikki, and I think if this keeps happening, Ventus might fall in the trap of getting overconfident. I think in this game they are too far ahead for that to matter a lot, but going for the rest of the series, it's definitely something to look out for.
Absolutely. This is something that we need to talk about a little bit later, as Ventus has been the kind of team that sort of gets a little bit overconfident, but as you're saying right now, they're so far ahead, there aren't that many things that could go wrong for them. What they need to do now is they need to prove that they can also finish the games, because this is something that they've been struggling with, even having a huge lead, being able to actually secure the win.
Yeah, with the team comp that they've got going right now, I think they've got a pretty good group and dive comp. If you get sleeping in with a Cillian speed buff on top of the Poppy, and then you have the revive for whoever's tanking up the tower, that's definitely something that you can go for. But if every hook lands, you don't need to dive.
Exactly, but another hook coming in. Krislund is going to get the ultimate. Yes, he is. Priestkunet is there to help him. Much as well, getting out with the lantern, but now Krislund is going to die. Focus. He's going in, back in again. He finally goes down, but is this enough for the team to clean this up? Sleepy coming in, chasing down Jamero under the turret. Quickset has been caught. He's taken down. Kenapil now is the one, but Priestkunet is tanking it up. He doesn't have his ultimate anymore, but Kenapil doesn't have the damage as well. He needs to back up right now, as Stimbose is not there to help him, taking damage after damage. As Much is still on the side, was able to win his 1 versus 1, still going for this turret.
Wow, in the end, just a 3 for 2 though in favor of Ventus, but they're going to be unlocking this inhib tower with a Mountain Dragon. That's going to be going down pretty quickly. Still gotta say, in the fight, that was a very clutch stopwatch from Majd. The ultimate from Stimbose, the Fear Beyond Death, was shooting at him when he was really low, and he just used that stopwatch at exactly the right time, able to live through that. Now think if Stimbose would have been able to pick up the kill on Majd and then get the AoE Fear down on the Urgot, that could have been a completely different fight. So Nyyrikki, they are definitely fighting back here, even though they're far behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Nyyrikki, putting up a great fight in that situation, being that far behind, and again, kind of once more capitalizing on these individual mistakes from Ventus Esports. Talked about Ventus Esports there going a little bit too deep, a little bit too early. I don't think they needed to be that aggressive. They got the turret, they decided to go for the initiation. I think they could just have backed off in that situation, or get the 1 kill on Tiara, maybe when they weren't able to get the flay on him, just back off. Instead, Krislund just dives into the backline and gives away that shutdown goal.
So I think there's really one playmaker here left for Nyyrikki. Everyone else is falling so far behind, but with a 1,000 gold shutdown on Krislund, Yamaru is actually starting to do quite well on this Vladimir. He's gonna be going for a full AP, really burst damage heavy build, and Vladimir is one of those champions that can completely snowball in a team fight. If you're not able to burst him down or get that healing reduction down, Vladimir can completely roll over an entire fight. So Yamaru is really the only big threat that Ventus has to be looking out for.
Absolutely. Yamaru was the one that reinitiated that fight, realizing that they were able to run away with it when Priestkunet went down, and rather when they used ultimate on him from Priestkunet, and then he was stuck in a bad position. They already used Lantern to save Mush, so Krislund was the main focus. Yamaru comes in and he's able to get so much damage off, but in the end, they are so far behind that they need to make this happen, not just once or twice. They need to make this consistently happen for like 3-4 times more before they can get back into the game and truly have a position that they can win from.
And usually when you're this far behind, I think Baron spawning can be a good thing, because this gives you a big opportunity for the other team to mess up. If they go to this objective and take a bad fight, that's one of the only ways the team that's behind can start a comeback. But they have a 3-item Kai'Sa with double Mountain Dragon. This Baron is going to be dying so fast. Speaking of dying so fast, though.
Yeah, is Quickset there in time? He's going to try to use this Lantern, but Mush being able to jump over that wall. Wants to reinitiate a little bit. Priestkunet has arrived, forcing the flash, but now instead we have Azitor in a bad position. Needs to run away from this. Tiara has arrived, now coming up. There's nothing there to save Krislund, and he goes down yet again. Without him, this is going to be such a more difficult fight. Yamaru chasing this, getting caught, but no damage follow-up there. He gets the shutdown on Mush as well. This is 500 more shutdown goal, and Baron is up.
Wow, they're gonna be going for the Baron here, Sang. How insane is that? Nyyrikki White that has been so far behind for the entire game. Are they starting to mount a comeback here. Mosh is dead. There is no potential for a smite steal here, but they're doing Baron kind of slowly.
Yeah, they're doing it slowly. They can definitely, if they're able to get this Baron, run away with this, but Canopil is also getting dangerously low, and there's a lot of pokes going on around here, and there is Sleeping, getting Stinbos away from this fight. Canopil still sticking around, waiting for an opportunity to
Baron.
fight, but there comes the teleport as well. This is so clutch. Kristen arrived with the teleport, and now turning it around. All of a sudden, that goes from 0 to 100, and Baron in the end finally goes into the hands of Ventus Esports.
And people say teleport is not a combat summoner, like Crystalline just going in there, killing everyone, and then Baron's on like 800 HP just types thanks for leash in all chat, and they're going to be looking to end the game right here.
They absolutely can. The death spawn timers aren't that long right now, but I think they have enough time if they want to go for this. Now getting the first turret, turning around on Jamero. It's up to Jamero now, coming in with the Hemo Plague, trying to just get this minions away, but look at the damage from Kreisland. He's able to burst him into pieces, and in the end, Ventus Esports not quite daring to go for the finish, are going to back off, but they went away with even more kills, and they got the turrets.
Yeah, not sure if they could actually have gone for that. They are going to be pulling back, going for another reset as well. They do still have the Baron buff available for all of those teammates, but still, like, that Baron fight was like, you could start to try to analyze that, but I think it's better left as just like that fight went on for like 1 minute pretty much.
Yeah, well, you called it. They didn't have a very quick Baron take, and they're also all just sort of running around, not quite sure. You can see Canopil tanking so much damage in the situation because they are so far behind that they don't really have the tank. And Sten Busse, when he was not able to tank it anymore because Sleeping was able to get the Keeper's Verdict and knock him away, only him, that turned that entire fight around. And also with Kreisland being this far ahead, being able to teleport in, that is also just all of these things that shows that Ventus Esports, even though they make these mistakes, also are able to get back from them.
Very good that you point out the Keeper's Verdict there. Was really huge for Sleeping, who's kind of been invisible so far in the game. He was starting to kind of lose that 1v1 top lane earlier on, just falling slightly behind in the straight up laning phase, and then has not been doing so much, but that ultimate just forgets it all, knocks the only real tank for Nyyrikki out of the Baron pit, and this could be the fight for Nyyrikki. I think this is where he can make a last stand.
Great control, but the flank is set. Yara tries to find it, does not quite get it. He has his flash, but he sees it for too long, and he goes down. Ventus Esports now moving in. We have the super minions in the mid lane.
Yeah, and Baron buff is still going to be there for about 1/3 still left. Nyyrikki is still with ultimate and ignite for Yamaru, and he's the big carry for the team right now. He's ahead on this Vladimir, and the only way they can kill this big Kai'Sa. So he's going to have to make a lot of things happen if they're going to be saving this game. This is where you have to make a last stand.
Yeah, absolutely. But Kreisland, he's dealing so much damage to these turrets, staying safe with help from his trusty support. Now going in for the Nexus, going in for the final fight. They've been able to find one more kill before it all ends. Here comes the heroic entry, still going for it. Mush goes down. Fight still is here. Kreisland is the one dealing most of the damage. Sleeping going low, but Kreisland with the double kill, looking for the triple kill, fighting another one with the triple kill as well. Can fight Stilbos right now. Are you going to go for it? Yes, they are. There's the shutdown. Quadra kill for Kreisland, and game one is Ventus Esports.
Is that 16-2-6 that I see on the scoreboard for Kreisland, Sang?
It's definitely 16-2-6. That's absolutely insane. And although he was caught out a couple of times, in the end it didn't even matter.
I think Ventus Esports showed that they can play at a very high level. They also showed that they can play on not so high of a level. I think they could have finished that game up a lot quicker than they actually did, but in the end it just showed like they're stronger mechanical players overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when they get ahead, we talk about it, they get a little bit full of themselves, so to speak, if I dare to say that, and they make these mistakes. And instead of just accepting, for example, that Mush got caught out and they had to use a lot of abilities just to get him out again, they sort of decide to still go for the fight, still that we are ahead enough to take this fight. When Kreisland goes down, we're still too far ahead. We can still take this fight, and these are the mistakes that they're making. Although I was happy to see that when they had the opportunity to go for kind of maybe finishing the game, maybe not, they opted to instead back off and play it safely, showing that they have learned a lot from this tournament.
Absolutely. That was a bit of a stomp.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta say, yeah, I gotta agree.
Yeah, you can. But it really showed there that Ventus Esports on their side, they were playing, as you stated, very kind of overconfidently, which is fine when you're 10k gold ahead, but when you're starting to lose that position, it was really close at that Baron fights that Nyyrikki would actually start to mount a trend to change this and turn this around. And I was a little bit disappointed by Nyyrikki there, actually, in the decision making in the team fight around Baron, because, well, if you want to, this game really accentuates what we've been talking about the two teams. We have the individual skills of Ventus, the absolutely superiorly strong laning phases, and then we have the team play and the team composition and of Nyyrikki. So I think when you get that far ahead, it's really hard as a team to keep your mentality together, to make the slow, meticulous, safe decision making. And at Baron there, if they instead of reworking Baron, trying to pick that Baron down, would have just baited them in and turned that around and tried to pick off a few more players, they could have really turned that around and really started to mount a comeback. But I think the problem here is that when you're in here and you're in the studio, you're in the live finals, it can be, and you're 10k gold behind, it's really hard to do that crisp decision making. What do you think they need to do to talk about their mentality before game number 2?
I would say, to be honest, that the team of these two that has the highest chance of being able to get back from this position is definitely Nyyrikki White. I know that one of the players, one of the unsung heroes on this team, their sub-support, Selfway, is also kind of the mental coach for the team. They talked about this earlier, and this is something that we see. I feel like we have seen all of the things we talked about before. We see this mental fortitude from Nyyrikki White, being able to fall this far behind and still putting up good fights. Fights that, if they weren't that far behind individually from the lane phase, especially the bot lane, they could actually been able to win. If they weren't that far behind in the bot lane, they would have been able to secure that Baron. It had 2k HP left. That's like just a little bit more, and then they can smite it, and they would have been able to finish that off. And I feel something, though, from Nyyrikki White that they really need to reassess is their bot lane. Yeah. Because we've been talking a lot about the stronger bot lane being in the hands of Ventus Esports. But talking to Nyyrikki earlier today, they told me that they feel their bot lane is the stronger individually. And I feel this is fine if you can realize this. Maybe this is just an off game. But in general, I feel they need to realize that we need to play a safer bot lane. We need to make sure that we do not allow Kriesland and Quickset to snowball like this. It's fine to fall behind a little bit, but you don't need to force something to try to prove that you are the better bot lane because you have such a great team as a unit.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there, and I think that if they're saying that they've got a stronger bottom lane, they're wrong. I don't think they I think they are significantly outclassed here by Kriesland and Quickset. Not because they're bad, but because Kriesland is the best player in this entire tournament. You could see that in that game as well. I gotta agree with you also that they're pretty good at playing from behind. I think that's a skill that's not that common for these sort of teams at this level, because mostly you're just like playing scrims, you're running over all your opponents, so you don't get to practice playing from behind, and they're actually pretty good at it.
Absolutely.
I think they kept fighting, and that Baron fight was really close. If that Poppy ultimate would have landed on someone else, if it would have missed, that could have been a completely different game. In the end, though, it didn't.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
But it was very close. It was much closer than you would expect from this early game. That is my point. I don't think Ventus, if they fell behind like this, I don't think they would have been able to make it such a close game as Nyyrikki White were able to.
So for the tactical break now, the teams are assessing their mistakes and the path forward before to the next game, and possibly all the way up to 5 games. So what do you think they're talking about? Do you think Nyyrikki should talk about, well, we need to be more careful, we need to be more methodical, we need to really focus throughout the early game so that we can get our team composition together? What do you think? You talked about bot lane. Is that the same for the second for the other lanes?
I think that the big thing for Nyyrikki is to rework the draft here. I think they need to adapt. You don't pick Sejuani and a mid lane who's going to get pushed in at the same time, because that opens up the Nidalee or other aggressive junglers to go for that. So either you pick a stronger duelist jungler or you pick a mid laner that has a stronger push. Also for the support role, I don't think Galio was the correct choice. I mentioned both Braum and Tom Kench would have been better defensive choices in lane, being able to get away from those hooks, which was so strong for Quickset. So I think overall the team comp was fine, just a few small changes to secure the weaknesses, and they're going to be good for game 2.
Yeah, Sang?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I feel like if the team weren't falling that far behind in the bot lane from these fights, this would have been a completely different game. So I want to see them not talk too much about their draft, even though I agree with you that having the losing mid lane push and the jungler that also can't 1v1 is a problem for them. I feel like these individual mistakes that happen in bot lane cannot be allowed to happen again, especially when you pick this very safe marksman, Ezreal, that does not have the same kind of teamfight power as a Kai'Sa has. When you go for that, you have all these ways you can escape. You can never allow yourself to get caught, not for a second. And also with the Galio, you need to respect versus the Thresh, that even though you are quite tanky, the Thresh and Kai'Sa will be able to shred through you anyway. You might have to use that flash anyway, even though you don't want to. And especially when going for that tower dive, bot lane, like it's really easy for me now to say this when it already happened, but you really need to be 100% sure if you're gonna go for that kind of dive versus that kind of champion. And, well, I really don't feel that they had that kind of security going for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Interesting. We're gonna take a few minutes break here. We're gonna let the players, obviously, and their teams have a tactical discussion and talk about how Nyyrikki is to possibly change up their draft, their team composition, and so forth. And we're going to see what they're going to do to keep Christlund at bay in the bottom lane. So we're taking a few minutes of a break, and then we're back for game 2.